Hey yo, salute to all my subscribers. Shout out to everybody else passing through. YouTube, what's good? Um, so I stopped through to do another installment in my New Age Parent series. And this will be episode 2, and I'm gonna get straight into it. So I was scrolling through Facebook earlier, and one of my many Facebook friends um, had a question on their Facebook feed, and it was a it was a call to moms, which I didn't really appreciate, but it is what it is. I understand that the one of the biggest stereotypes is that moms think they're the only ones who know how to be parents, but that's cool. We're not gonna harp on that. The question was, she was talking about how her son has recently started lying, and um, she was basically asking the moms that she knew um, to basically give her some advice and try and help her figure out a way to get through to and communicate to her son that you know lying isn't something that she should do, and this is a behavior that she really wants to get out in front of, sooner rather than later, which is um, definitely the way to go with our children. Any children, you're trying to instill moral values into them, especially types of characteristics that are congruent with people being trustworthy and being honest, and those types of things. You definitely want to start early. The earlier the better, because if we let even the smallest of bad behaviors go in our children for too long, and once they hit a certain age, or once they hit a certain stride with that behavior, and those actions become habit, it's almost impossible to break at that point. Um, and so, I was reading through some of the comments, and the first thing I'll do before I even get into what my advice was when I commented on the post, you know, I, nobody knows the perfect way to parent, because there is no such thing. Every kid is different. I mean, you can be two parents in a household or a single parent in a household, and you can have three kids, and all three of those kids are going to be so different in certain aspects of their personality. Um, it, it you would think they were being raised by three different parents. It's just the way it is. Our kids have their own personalities. They're very individual and unique in that way. And you can't. One thing I've learned in being a parent of three kids, you cannot parent your kids if you have multiple kids the same way. Everyone needs a different approach, but there are certain things that there is a blanket approach for. And when it came to lying, because it's something that my kids did not nearly as much now as they did before, and I'm actually convinced that they don't even lie to me at this stage, because once I ask them something, I think I've done such a good job in instilling the fear of them lying to me and me finding out about that lie. I've instilled that so much that to them I don't even think it seems worth it anymore. Um, and so that kind of brings me to some of the comments that I read through, where people, some of the moms that were commenting, didn't even seem to be focusing on the actions of the son of this mother who was looking for advice. Um, a lot of them seem to be focusing more on her parenting, as far as her spending time with her son. Like, I think I saw a couple of moms say, "Oh, I noticed the same thing in my daughter and my son, and then I had to really sit down and think, and then I realized that I had been working and going to the gym a lot and not spending that one-on-one time." Look, I'll stipulate that kids need time. Um, they need you to spend time with them. They need affection. They need, if you have multiple kids, they need one-on-one time. I understand all of that. It has nothing to do with the question that was being posed and this mother looking for advice about lying. And that's what brings me to my first point. I think a lot of us as parents tend to make excuses for our children's actions, and sometimes the wrong excuses. I understand that our kids are just kids, and they're only able to process to a certain extent. But I also know full well that a big part of the reason for why kids are the way they are is not because of them as kids, it's because of the adults who are charged with raising them. And what I mean by that is, first of all, our kids are a lot smarter than we typically as parents give them credit for. Um, just think back to when you were a child. I mean, I even at 7, 8, and 9, I remember how smart and conniving I was as a kid. I mean, I could think out whole schemes of how to do things and get away with it, and how to get my siblings in trouble for things that I did. Or I, these kids are masterminds, and our kids are eons ahead of us because of all the technology that they're exposed to, and some of the skills that they have and the things they're able to do. But we're all kids, just like criminals. Not to compare kids to criminals, but they all go wrong when it comes to committing actions and trying to get away with them. You only plan so far as the action itself. Our kids never really account for, even if they know that there's going to be consequences, they never account for them because in their heads, they really think that they're doing something that's so outlandishly uh, uh, brilliant that they're not going to get caught. They think that they really think they're that enterprising and that into it that they're not going to get caught. And like we know, like when we were kids, and same thing with our parents. And if you commit certain crimes, you're eventually going to get caught. You can't avoid your kids not doing certain things that you don't want them to do because it's just part of the growing pains of being kids. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to do things just because they're kids and they're curious, or just because being defiant is just in the nature of children because they're still exploring the world around them. And most kids are trying to see what they can and can't get away with. And most kids know what they can and can't get away with from certain parents and adults and authority figures in their lives. So if you think firstly that you're gonna do anything to eliminate behavior that you don't want your kids to exhibit, 100%, it's never gonna happen. What you can focus on though is that you can instill into your kids that once they commit an action that they shouldn't have, or that um, is not the best of actions in your mind as a parent, you can and should instill in them by any means necessary that the last thing that you should do at this point, now that we know something's happened and I suspect that it's you, the last thing you should do at this point is lie about it. And that's what I did with my kids when I noticed that they were start at different stages and different ages for each of them, but I noticed that lying was starting to become a thing. And I tell the first thing is that you parents need to stop mincing words with your kids. I understand that they're spending a majority of their time, and just for context, my kids are 5, 7, and 10. One's going to be 11 in just a couple weeks. I know that they spend the majority of their day in school, and they're at the ages and in grades right now where these stupid ass teachers think that it's beneficial to our children to talk in these high pitched baby style voices and be superly and overly accommodating, and go out of their way to let kids know that it's okay when they do something wrong and that they don't have to be afraid of getting in trouble. And look, as a parent, and I'm not criticizing teachers, because I understand that if you're a teacher, your job is stressful and you have a multitude of kids that you have to deal with day in and day out. But understand that for a parent who's trying to raise their kids in a certain way, one of the best motivators for parenting and really anything in life is fear. I mean, it's a lot of the primal instincts that we have as human beings, as mammals, and a lot of the natural defense mechanisms that nature has set in place for us to survive for thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of years, however far back the first humans, walking the earth go. A lot of that is predicated around fear. Fear is a big motivator. Fear keeps people from doing things, and fear motivates people to do things. And sorry about that. I had to step away for a second. To get back into what I was saying, by the way, I don't edit videos. We go straight through, run straight through. We get it out the way. We talk about what we got to talk about. But to continue my point and where I left off, fear is a big motivator, and never underestimate the the power that fear has as a tool when you're raising your kids. And what I mean by that is, we understand as adults and even as kids, we knew the motivation, but might not have understood why we were so strongly motivated. But the fear of getting caught doing something that you shouldn't be doing, whether you're a child or an adult, whether that something is something that is illegal if you're talking criminal justice system, whether that something is wrong in the eyes of a partner if you're talking intimate relationship. We know as adults that if you're doing something that is not congruent to a situation that you're in being a positive and peaceful situation, and it's not conducive to constructive and healthy relationships, then we as adults tend to lie our way out of things so that we don't get caught. And the thing is that we understand that people lie because they don't want to get found out about something that they've done, whether it be for fear of what the consequences might be, whether it be because they don't want to disappoint someone who believes in them, that they're honest or wants them to be. The bottom line is, kids and adults, everyone lies at some point in time or another. The people who live their life in a transparent way and who go out of their way to try to be honest, good, bad, or indifferent, are the people who at some point in their lives were habitual liars, and at some point realized that's not how they want to live. When I was a kid, I lied about everything. And I got to a certain point in my life where I'm like, yo, I could really give a fuck less about, what people think about my actions, because I realized at some point along the way that if I'm doing something, it's for a reason, and if I decided to do it, I'm just gonna stand behind it, no matter what the consequences are. And me developing that kind of mantra for my life has landed me in jail. It's landed me, nothing serious, but when I was younger, being young and stupid, it's gotten me into things in my relationships over the years. It's gotten me into things with losing friends, but I live by the principle that if I'm gonna do something, there was a reason for why I did it, and I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of any consequences. I'm not afraid of what people think of me. So if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna stand behind what I do, whether what I did was wrong, whether it was bad, whether it was good or indifferent, doesn't matter. And so what I try to instill into my kids, and what I think parents need to instill into their kids, is it's a two-part thing. One, the reason why you're in trouble for the thing that you did in the first place is because actions have consequences. And there are certain things that I don't want my kids to do, because they're things that lead into behaviors that will make it difficult for them as they get into their adolescence and then young adulthood and then later on in life. And then there's certain things that just as parents, preference-wise, we just don't want our kids to do, just because. And then there's the once they've done that thing that you already didn't want them to do. That's a whole different thing, and I think parents too often mix and confuse the two, right? There's the things that you tell your kids you don't want them to do, things you teach them not to do, and when they do them, they know that they're going to be in trouble, and you know that you're going to be upset. And so for the kids who slip up and do those things anyway, whether it's because they're just mischievous and they just rock with the I don't give a fuck, I'm going to do what I want and deal with the consequences later, I respect that, because that's how I was as a kid. You got to catch me. Or whether they just, just being kids, they're not going to be perfect. And, some things you may not want them to do, but may not have communicated ahead of time, and they do it, and then it upsets you. And then, so kids kind of learn the patterns, and they learn the different moods of their parents. And so they'll lie depending on what they think, is the path of least resistance. And so what I think is best, and what I always do, is to instill into our children is that, first of all, we're past you doing something that you shouldn't have done. Because to me, lying is worse than any transgression that you could commit against me. And I tell my kids straight up, I don't mince words. I don't use these cookie cutter or telling fibs or telling stories or not being truthful. Look, you fucking lied, is what it is. And I tell my kids straight up, exactly how I would tell an adult is how I would tell my kids. Because when you start to treat your children, when it comes to their wrongdoings, as you would treat anyone else, you're giving them a sense of responsibility and giving them a sense of having to claim whatever it is they did wrong that they shouldn't have done. When you start babying your kids and going out of your way to try to make it seem like it's not that serious, then you're not really driving home your point that what they did shouldn't have been done and shouldn't be done going forward. And definitely shouldn't be lied about. I'm at a point now with my kids is that once I suspect that they've done something, whatever it is, they might not necessarily come running to me and confess what they did. But once I find out something was done and I ask them about it, believe that I'm at a point right now where they're not going to lie to me. And the reason for that is because I've gone out of my way to make sure. And, for people who are on the outside looking in and don't understand my parenting style and don't understand my foresight and why I do some of the things I do with my kids early on and how I treat them and my certain moods and behaviors toward them, is a method to my madness, and everything I do is very calculated. And for people like me who are very calculated, because we know how we were as kids and we see the different patterns as they develop early, and you can see down the line, because as a parent, especially in the earlier stages of life, you know your kids way better than they could know themselves at that stage. And so everything that I do in interactions with my kids is for a purpose. The overall purpose is so that they know to fear and respect me. And a lot of parents have gotten away from that style of parenting. People think it's a bad thing when you hear the term fear when you're associating parents to kids. Your kids are supposed to fear you. It's a healthy thing. We're not talking about abusive parents. We're not talking about parents who neglect their kids. Your kids are supposed to be so afraid of doing something that goes against how you're raising them and what you teach them to do in the way of right and wrong, that should be a big discouragement for them to do it. But once they have done something that they shouldn't have done, because all kids will, the fear of you finding out about them not being honest about it should far outweigh, in their minds, the fear of them getting in trouble for the original transgression in the first place. So in other words, like if my son who's 7 is, I don't know, playing with let's say a lighter, something that he knows he shouldn't be playing with, whatever it is, and I'm being extreme, let's say if he sets the piece of paper on fire on the table and he like stomps it out and runs in his room, and then I walk in the kitchen and I'm like, yo, who the fuck set this piece of paper on fire? And that's how I talk to my kids. I don't mince words. I don't do that, because you start to send mixed messages. It may not work for you as a parent if that's not your style, but that's my style and it works, and I don't really care who agrees with it. There's reasons for why I am the way I am, and everywhere I go, no matter where it is, I'm nothing but complimented on how well behaved my kids are in different atmospheres and environments. So he might, he's not going to come run up to me and be like, yo, I did this, I just whatever. He might, at this point, but he might not. I don't count on that. But once I come into the kitchen and I see that on the table and I'm like, yo, who the fuck did this? Believe that whoever did it out of my 3 kids is going to come up to me and be like, yo, that I did it at that point, because they know they're in trouble. You're in trouble. What you did is wrong, and I don't play that shit. But stronger than the fear of you getting in trouble and then you saying, I didn't do it, I don't know who did it, stronger than that fear is the fear that I've instilled into them, that if you lie to me, you're going to be in trouble 100 times worse than what you thought you were avoiding by lying. because we need to be straight up with our kids, and we need to definitely let them know that one lying is wrong, but it is an impulse for people, so it's natural in some ways. But kids need to be taught and need to be driven into them in a repetitive pattern that lying is not. I don't respect it. I don't respect it as your parent. If you have friends, they won't respect it. You won't be trustworthy. Your teachers won't respect it. People that you interact with later on in life won't respect it. So knock that shit off. It's that plain and simple. If you do something, at least stand behind what you do and be willing to be held accountable for it. I will sometimes not come down as hard on my kids if they're honest with me about something they did, because then I can at least respect the fact that you know enough to know, at least when you're dealing with me, that I need to stand behind what I did. And I tell my kids all the time, I don't like liars. If you lie to me, I will not respect you. I don't want to talk to you. Don't even be nowhere near me if you're going to lie to me. You need to be honest with me regardless of whatever it is you do. Because we can deal with the original action. I mean, it's not too many things at this stage in life that our kids can do that are going to be permanent, lifelong problems. You know what I mean? Like, it's most of the things they do just bullshit things that we'll laugh about when they get older. But that lying shit, I don't play that, and I definitely let my kids know from the rip, like, you lie to me, we got a problem. And so when I commented on this post that this mom had put on her page, it's exactly what I said. So many words. Like, look, let your son know basically that one, whatever he does, is his mom. That whether or not he's being honest about it. And we know that our kids have tells, and we know what those tells are. And, we know certain things that they don't even understand how we know. It's because we were kids once too. And it's the same thing we didn't understand when we were kids and our parents said it to us. So that's not going to work by itself. Just telling your kids that, look, I know you, I was a kid before, so I know. They're not buying that. But I let her know, like, look, like, definitely let him know that, yeah, there are consequences for actions, and sometimes those consequences are unavoidable. Sometimes you can be a little lenient, because sometimes it's not that serious. Like, oh, you dropped a glass cup and broke it. Like, it is what it is. But certain things have to be a teachable moment. It has to be. And these are usually the things that they're going to carry with them, out into the world, out to school. And some of the things that your kids may do that you catch, could potentially harm another kid, could potentially harm them, and vice versa, and whatever. So there are certain things that our kids do that we really can just be like, I'm going to brush it off. It is what it is. And there are certain things that definitely have to be a teachable moment. And those are the times in which you definitely have to let your kids know that, look, some actions have to have consequences. It's unavoidable. But it's always going to be worse what those consequences are going to be if you're not honest about your involvement in whatever those actions were. There's no perfect parent. There's no manual to being a parent. Never has been, probably never will be. And even if there was, it would be flawed by nature, because there's no two kids are exactly the same, and no two parents are exactly the same or could ever be. Kids have a clean slate for the most part. They're still figuring themselves out. They're just starting their journey, and they're so curious about their environment and just moving around in a carefree and innocent way. And a lot of times they don't know the far-reaching consequences of what they're doing. They just think they're having fun in the moment and being kids. They don't understand how certain things could really go all the way left. But we as adults, we bring a lot of our personal experiences into parenting. We bring a lot of our personal issues and baggage and whatever our hang-ups might be into parenting. And sometimes we bring, a bad day that we might have had at work, or even a bad day that we might have had with a significant other or a co-parent, into certain interactions with our kids. It's not the healthiest, but it's unavoidable, and you shouldn't beat yourself up as a parent either if you find yourself reacting sometimes to not something that your child did, but something that happened that had nothing to do with them. It's sometimes a natural response. It's just us being humans. You can't compartmentalize everything. Sometimes that color is going to seep outside those lines. But, you know, just do the best that you can. I do the best I can. And, as far as a child in a specific household, whether that household is a household with two parents, a single parent, or, two parents and a grandmother, or whatever it is, everybody does to a certain extent have to work together, but ultimately it's the goal of that main parent or those two main parents to instill those inner intrinsic values and calibrate that moral compass. That's your job to do, and there's no right or wrong way necessarily to do it. It's all really done by, you play it by ear. It's a little bit of love, a lot of mistakes, and you hope for the best. But some of it's common sense too. I'm not the perfect parent. I'm sure that I've made mistakes that I won't even know about until later on down the line. But there's also a lot of positive feedback, and there's also a lot of things that I'm seeing in my kids already, even at their earlier stages in life, that I'm very proud of. Both them as my children and me as their parent. And that's really the purpose, y'all. I know they say it takes a village. I don't believe it takes a village when it comes to instilling those inner intrinsic values. That specifically has to be the role of the mother and the father, because kids are so impressionable at an early age. If you have too many hands on them, too many hands molding that clay, you're just going to send mixed signals. But when it comes to getting support as a parent, and when it comes to being able to bounce parenting ideas off of each other, then that takes a village. That takes all of us to be involved. And so that's why when I come across different situations, whether I deal with them personally as a parent or someone else in my circle of parents, and the people that I know, or even my extended circle or people I might not even know, but just on my social media, like in this situation, who post different things about their experiences as parents, it behooves us to communicate those things to each other. And so that's why I bring these things to my platform on my channel, to you all for further processing, so that we could bounce ideas off of each other, and hopefully in doing that we can all become better parents to our children. We can become better co-parents to each other, and in doing all that, we end up with bright kids with bright futures, and who end up being productive members into society. I don't know everything. I just know what I know, and that's why I take what I know and I implement that every day the best way I know how. And I'm sure that you all do the same. I have trust in that, whether we're cognizant of it or not. We're all really just stabbing around in the dark, trying not to make, too many mistakes. So let me know what y'all think about this one. Subscribe, like the channel, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace and love.